people can't log into GitLab because of something, some upgrade or something changed, everybody is knocking down your door. That's when the pitchforks and torches come out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 5 of the DevOps Roundup podcast. Today we're going to be talking about what relevant skills you should have in the career of DevOps, what allows you to stay relevant, and what kind of mistakes are junior people making. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you drop a like, and let's jump into it.
Oh, thank
Welcome,
you,
Sean.
Yeah, welcome. So is relevant a thing in DevOps?
I would ask, is relevant a stable term in DevOps?
It is not. It's always a moving target. So there's a number of things I do to try to stay relevant in DevOps. If we want to jump to the second of the things.
Yeah, let's do that, because I was supposed to start with that one, but this is what happens when you don't script your videos.
Exactly. So the first thing I do is I try to stay up on any of the media around DevOps. So podcasts like this one, blog posts, is the low hanging fruit, the easy stuff to consume.
Because it doesn't stay around the house while you're working, mowing the lawn.
Doesn't necessarily cost anything to invest into a podcast or someone's blog, and it's just your time.
Yeah. And if you're watching this, let us know in the description or the comment section down below if you would be interested in us maybe making an episode of our top 10 DevOps blogs.
Well, I think eventually we probably will end up doing something like that as we are.
But let us know in the comment section down below.
Definitely, let us know that if you have a favorite.
Yeah, drop your favorite down below.
Yeah, and we might discuss it in a future episode. But that's the low hanging fruit. That's the stuff it's not going to cost you a lot to do those things, the podcasts and blogs, and but the next step up is user group meetings. Local user group meetings. So you're not necessarily flying somewhere. They're typically low or zero cost. And you can find a user group meeting at most major cities and around the majority of products in DevOps. So guaranteed, if you want to learn Docker, there's a local Docker meetup for you. It might meet every other month or something, but you should be able to find something like that.
And if there isn't one, you could start one.
Yeah, if there isn't one, there's definitely you can create something on Meetup or talk to the vendor if it's a vendor specific one. There's a lot of non-vendor specific meetups. There's typically a DevOps user group in every city as well. There's DevOps Days is the next step up. That's a paid event. It's usually once a year per city, but it's a low cost event. Majority of them are probably under $200 to attend. They're typically 2-day events. It differs per city. I've seen them 1-day events. I've seen them 3-day events. I've never seen them more than $250. I've seen a lot of them that were free.
Times they are changing, Sean.
Yeah. But that's your next step up. And then you're following that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask maybe because I'm not inside the mind of Sean, but where would white papers fall under?
I would consider those in blogs.
In the blogs?
In the blogs.
But it's a little bit more of an investment, though, because one, you got to give up an email usually to get the white paper.
True.
Usually it's a blog. I feel like you can read it in 2-3 minutes. A white paper, you might need 30 minutes to an hour.
That's true. I would say depending on how we want to slice and dice this, it would be, between blogs and going to a local event, because a local event would require, a commitment in an afternoon or an evening. And obviously the commute time to get to the event.
Yeah, but snacks, right? Snacks make it worth it.
So yeah, and that is something that I also would love people to comment. What events have they gone to that had a very good snack game? Um,
Yeah. What kind of snacks are you getting at the meetup that you're going to? Let us know in the comment
types
section.
of snacks, quality, and quantity are the three things that I would rate
Yeah.
a good user group
And
event.
maybe swag. Sometimes there's swag, like there's stickers, buttons.
Swag in earlier days, swag was more important to me. Now it's all snacks.
It's just snacks.
But a good user group meeting would have some sort of swag, either from a career company like a recruiter, or of the vendor, or the host.
Yeah.
Often they're hosted by at a corporate site. So typically they may have your typical swag, keychains, stickers,
Yeah,
socks.
and sometimes they even have like real food, not just even snacks, right? So I know some of the Atlassian ones are usually a decent meal that you
Yeah,
can go and have.
yeah, yeah. It all depends on who's hosting it, and how well they're coordinated. But yeah, if it's an evening event, typically they're going to, at the least, bring in pizza, or have, at the
Hey, you
top,
joke around, but
bring in barbecue or
that
something.
pizza was the best thing I had at Team 25. They brought in like 50 boxes of Domino's to the bash party, and all week
Oh,
that was like the best food that I
so
had.
I kept turning that down because it was Domino's pizza.
It was better than any of the other food they gave us that whole week.
Well, I would agree with that, but yeah, I wasn't all that excited about the Domino's pizza. I was
I
at the
wasn't
bash
either, but like I
party,
said, when
and
you
these
compare it
people,
to all the food,
yeah, they kept walking up to you with the pizza. Would you like some pizza? No.
oh man, little sidebar story. When when I used to work at one of these big defense contractors, when we switched over to SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework,
Mhm.
we were like the guinea pigs. We were the pioneers, and we didn't have the trainers. You know how SAFe has their certified SCPs or whatever they have. We were still working out those details, right? And so
Okay.
our technical lead, he's like, "All right, folks, I'm gonna book a conference room. I got the biggest one that this company has. Everybody show up there tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and I'm bringing pizzas for lunch." The homie bought like 50 boxes of Little Caesars and 10 people showed up.
Oh no!
I took so
So
many
everyone got
boxes.
5 boxes.
Yeah, I took so many boxes home. I ate Little Caesars for like 3 straight days.
So the meeting started at 8. Did he bring the pizzas at 8, and
No,
they
no,
just
he
sat
got
there
them
to
like
lunch?
delivered for lunch, but
Okay.
it was still one of those things where uh, I think he expected more people to be more excited about safe.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Well, those safe certified people are a little off anyway. So
Yeah, but that's my pizza story. All right, so we got blogs, we got podcasts. Subscribe to this one.
and
We
don't forget
have
the white papers that you
we got
that you.
white papers, and then we have these user groups, which we either find one in your area. A lot of vendors have one, especially if you're in the Atlassian
Yeah.
space. If you're in the Atlassian space and you live in a big city, chances are there's going to be an ace around you.
Mhm.
Some of these are also
Hopefully
virtual.
active. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully active. Some of these are virtual, so you can maybe if
There's a
your
lot
area doesn't have
virtual. Yeah.
one, you can go to like I'm going to be in DC next week, virtually. Phoenix is having one next week as well. That I'll be
So
there
didn't
virtually.
Phoenix have something yesterday and then it get canceled last minute?
Was it yesterday? I thought they were having a big one on the 28th.
I don't know. I not subscribed. I RSVP
Right.
to two things for Phoenix, and just as I was getting ready to log into one, it get canceled on me.
Yeah, no, I have the from Anaheim to Arizona, unpacking Team 25 with Phoenix's finest barbecue on on the 28th of May.
Okay. I'm probably also RSVP to that, but
I'm
virtually.
half debating if I drive out there just for fun that day.
Were you planning on attending virtually, and then
I mean, it's a
thinking about
5 hour
going?
drive for me. It's a 1 hour flight.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Southwest,
then it takes an hour or two just to wait for the flight. Yeah.
yeah, but Southwest has these flights from my local airport to various cities right now for $39. So I
Yeah.
can go and come back to San Jose, to Silicon Valley for $80.
That's nice. Yeah.
I know. So I'm half thinking of going somewhere. I got some Southwest credits I got to use up.
Yeah,
But you
I
got to book,
probably do as well.
and you got to book before the 28th because then you got to start paying for bags.
Everything changes. Yeah.
Yeah, so book
Everything
all your
changes.
flights before the 28th. All right, so we got those, but I wanted to ask you one more. I think it's
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
falls in the middle.
Mhm.
Webinars.
Yeah, webinars would be less intrusive than going to a local meetup. You typically don't have to leave your house, or you can stay at work and use your work computer. Um, they typically don't cost anything.
Except your
So
email.
yeah, except for your email. But once you get to the white paper level, you're giving up your contact information. Um, but even if you're attending an in-person meeting, you're probably already registered with your email address. So they have that. But yeah, webinars would be between um, white papers and
And the
local
OGS.
events.
Okay.
But then after the local events, you have the regional events or the annual conferences. Like you've mentioned Teams a couple times. So Teams is the Atlassian once a year big event, and they now do one in Europe as well. This will be the second year in a row that they've had the European one. But the majority of other large software vendors also do an event. So AWS reInvent is a very popular
That's a
one.
big one. I want to go to that one.
That's coming up in December, and
Is it already coming up? Wow, that's right
yeah.
around the corner.
So yeah, so I plan on going. I don't remember if that was the one where registration's already open. It may be.
Isn't that the one you got COVID in last time though?
I did.
Oh, that's CES.
No, I didn't get COVID at CES. I got it because I had COVID during
Christmas.
December. So I got it at the end of AWS reInvent.
Well,
So
word to the wise. You might get sick too.
I don't
So
have a great track
comment down
record.
below if you've ever gone to a conference or some sort of big tech event and got sick.
There's going to be a lot of comments then. I don't have a great track record of coming back from events healthy. I think it's the combination of
The last one
all
almost
my
like
best
knocked you out.
friends, plus all the alcohol, plus all the bad food, um, or food that's bad for you, but it's great food.
That Domino's pizza.
Yeah, all the unhealthy choices at conferences, plus all the folks and the traveling. Everyone just got off a plane, and so someone's got something, and I'm great at catching whatever that is. So
Load up on vitamin C, not sponsored. We should. That's what we should need. We need to partner up with the vitamin C maker.
I don't know if
Forget
I could
J-Pod.
name a vitamin C. Was it like Nature's Made or something like that? Is that a
There's
vitamin C?
that Energix, that powder stuff.
Yeah. For
Energy or something like that.
something like that. I've got employees that like love to give me health advice, and they're always some
Emergency.
emergency. Yeah,
Dash C.
yeah. I
There you
think
go.
one of
That's a
my employees
brand.
tells me I need.
Emergency if you're watching. We'll have everybody in the tech community be drinking emergency before tech conferences.
Yeah. So what is that? There's what is it? AG1? Is that the some sort of energy powder drink that a lot of YouTubers are
There is an
promoting?
AG1 Athletic Greens Daily Health Drink.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
a lot.
subscribe to those things, so I don't know.
Yeah, I subscribe to a number of channels, and they're always pushing that or the Bomba socks and stuff like that. So
All right, so we got blogs, podcasts, white papers, webinars, local events, regional events.
and
What
then
else are we
the
doing? Because
last thing is paid training. And that should jump out for you because that's your
my bread and butter.
your main line of work is paid for courses. And
Well, I think I would add one once we finish this discussion.
Sure.
Well, let's finish paid courses. So sometimes these can
I guess
from
free courses are in there somewhere too, right?
courses. Let's just bundle it as courses, right? But you can get courses at your local community college.
True.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you're learning something like scripting, like a Python, Perl.
Yeah,
right?
if you're not
PowerShell.
specifically trying to learn a product, you can most likely find it at a community college or one of these programming boot camps.
Yeah.
You know.
That's one avenue. Another avenue is there's like local universities that have professional tiers or professional tracks.
Professional. Yeah.
Well, I'll call because they're usually like afternoon, evening programs,
Yeah.
right? I get them. I went to St. Louis University and WashU in St. Louis, and I'm subscribed to their email list where they're like, "Hey, we have a new Security Plus boot camp where you pay a few $1,000s. They prep you for the course, and then you get the voucher for the certification, which is what we're going to talk about next, certifications." But there's these, some of these universities might offer specialized tracks that are very focused on specific skills for professional development, as opposed to your generic bachelor's or master's in this stuff.
Yeah, in computer science or
Right.
programming or something like that. Yeah.
Which begs the question: there is no major for DevOps, right?
No, there's not.
But it's a necessary evil in the computer science community.
Is they a major for program management?
No, but there usually is some sort of a master's.
Yeah.
At least maybe some companies or some universities.
Universities, yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to have a DevOps master's. That would be skillful to have.
Yeah, definitely is. So they are a number of organizations like the DevOps Institute.
Right. And that's what I was going to get to next, right? So then there's private parties that offer.
Yeah.
And so I would look for private. Obviously, you're going up in price, I think, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the map that we're painting is price and
time.
Yeah,
price,
time and effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
so these private ones are obviously gonna, but the reverse can be said, right? There's significant value in paying a few $1,000s for mastering GitHub in a week, because not only is it fast, but because you paid a few $1,000s, this might work out for you one of two ways. Your company may pay for it if you have a training budget, or B, because you're paying for it out of your own pocket, you're actually going to pay attention. Versus some of these other things that we've been doing, like I don't know about you, Sean, right? But I have like coding podcasts and other podcasts just playing as background noise. So I'm listening. I'm doing an active listen for keywords, but I couldn't paraphrase you the podcast.
No, you couldn't necessarily jump on your computer and reproduce what they just taught you because you weren't 100%.
Right, but if I'm paying $2,000-$3,000 for a course, I'm closing the TikToks.
Yeah. You're 100% paying attention to that course. I definitely get you on that. But that's also a good segue into certification. So if you are paying for something, you want to have some proof that you've done that or some tangible asset afterwards, and that's typically they're going to pay the voucher for the certification, or they're going to So I've seen sometimes where the certification is the last day of the course,
or the conference too.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of times that's how I will determine who goes to a particular conference. Is they need the certification, and the certification's offered during the conference for either some discount or it's included with the conference price. So that's one of the criteria I would use on which employee to send to which conference.
So. Yeah, and then no pressure if you're one of Sean's employees.
I don't know if I have many employees left that don't already have the certifications.
And so let's talk about that. So putting your CEO hat on, how valuable is a certification for you? You're looking for your hat? Do you really have a hat? CEO?
I do have a hat here, but it's not a CEO hat. So, and they're not a sponsor, but they're a partner. But there's probably my more comfortable hat, and it just happens to be right here. So.
You should definitely get. I'm a CEO.
So yeah, if there's a hat vendor out there that wants to send me on the CEO hat, I would appreciate that too. Yeah. we need a graphic for begging for stuff. But anyway, how valuable are certifications? So it depends. As a DevOps consulting company who partners with these large vendors, they have partnership programs, and depending on they all have slightly different criteria, but usually the number of certifications you have as an organization counts towards your partnership level. And the partnership level's benefits are usually margin for reselling the software, or
Training.
who they're going to recommend for engagements. And typically, the higher you up in that program, the more that the vendor will recommend you for services, or resell their software, and to give you margin on their software. But like I said, it depends. Some of the partner programs aren't really worth climbing the ladder. It's just too much effort for very little reward. Others, it's extremely important. And depending on the skill set I'm hiring for, it may be more important to me to hire someone that already has the certificates that I need as an organization. So release team, DevOps tool specialists. We provide professional services and software reselling around the leading software DevOps tools like Atlassian, GitLab, GitHub, JFrog, and others. To talk with us about DevOps, here's our contact information. Please call 866-887-0489 or via email at info@releaseteam.com.
Or something like that?
Something like that, but only the first 2 certificates per employee mattered. So if I have someone that has 6 or 8 certificates, they're no more valuable to me than someone that only has 2.
Good to know.
Because it's the minimum number of flair. You only need 2 to count as a certified consultant. And this is just the Atlassian's example, but it's also IBM used to have exactly the same plan that Atlassian had before. But Atlassian's changed everything now. Now it doesn't matter how the certificates are divided up, as long as we have the minimum number of certifications for the level. But there's other criteria that make it more difficult to achieve the different tiers than just certifications. But if we look at, I don't want to call out one that is then going to make things harder on me.
X company.
Yeah, but company X, they don't, while they require the certifications, their certifications are, you pass a quiz online and you're certified. And I just need to get all the consultants to do the damn quizzes, and they get certificated. So it depends. So like AWS has a very thought out set of certifications and tests. They're probably they're the ones that come to mind as being more difficult than Atlassian's. So Atlassian has pared down the number of certifications. They definitely ramped up the number of
like 4 now.
Yeah, exactly. But they ramped up the secondary tier. What are those called? The ACAs?
Oh, the ACAs? Yeah, they got like a dozen of those.
Yeah, so there's a lot more of those now. But then the actual certifications they've really pared down. So it made sense that they loosened up that requirement, a little bit. It's not really loose. But if you compare them to some of the other partners that we have, they're much more coordinated,
Concentrated.
They've thought it out.
Yeah.
And other partners, they barely have a training program, let alone a set of certifications. But to someone entering and wanting to become a DevOps professional, like I said, I don't like to say DevOps engineer, but if you want to be a professional in a company that's practicing DevOps, then it does make sense to chase some of the certifications.
I used to have a professor in college who said, "You guys want to hear an oxymoron?" And we're like, "What's that?" A software engineer.
What's he got against software engineers?
He was a embedded professor, so embedded software. So he was like, "You can't be an engineer. You don't physically, tangibly build something."
Yeah, I don't know
And
if I
software,
with that.
you don't tangibly touch your software.
Yeah. So he only considered hardware.
Embedded systems. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. Now, I did want to pull up or bring up a very important fact here. So, if you go through the certification route, it's still very relevant with how do we stay relevant? Because once you get the certifications, these are kind of like timestamps in time. However, most of these certifications, if not all of them, have some sort of an expiration date.
they do. Yeah.
And so in order to maintain them, you can either retake the test, and in Atlassian's case, they do update the test every few years to keep it relevant, or in Atlassian's case as well, you have to go to events. You have to present at events.
That is unique to Atlassian. Very few other partner programs or vendor companies that have certifications have other ways to,
Really? Because I did Security Plus and Certified Ethical Hacker, and like that one I had to publish.
That one's
I had
not necessarily tied to a specific vendor. Security Plus.
I guess it's not. Yeah. But that's something we also didn't talk about, right? So I would say most of the certifications happening through DevOps are usually tied to a vendor, unlike like in the cyber world where they're tied to like an organization.
Yeah.
Right. Some collective body of people, like CompTIA.
And depending on the vertical that you're trying to work for or work within, they may be a different set of certifications that makes sense to get. So like Security Plus, unless you're in defense, it may not be the best one to chase down.
But much needed if you ever need an admin account.
Yes, if you want an admin account these days at a defense contractor, you really need the Security Plus. And otherwise, you're going to be relying on the sysadmin who has the Security Plus to type everything in for you.
And there's this much of Security Plus that you need to actually have an account.
Yeah, you just have to pass the exam. Yeah.
But the exam has nothing to do with your day job or the reason why you have an admin account.
Well, exactly. I think the Security Plus model is a terrible, yardstick to use to get an account, even a privileged user account.
Sometimes I wonder if like these. So I had collusion is the word in my mind. Okay. One time.
Not a good word for the Department of Defense, but yeah.
No. Well, let me tell you my story of why I think collusion. Okay. I used to live in an HOA, and one day I get a nice little letter from my HOA saying I got to paint my house.
I hate those letters.
I hate those letters. Yeah, that's why I don't have an HOA today. And in fact, I even sent an email to my HOA telling them the reason I'm moving is because you guys exist. That was my mic drop on the way out. But anyway, so they sent me a nice little letter to paint my house, right? Conveniently enough, within a day, a painting truck service started showing up at all the doors. And I was like, there's got to be some collusion here because the HOA is a self-inflicted pain, right? They wake up and say, we're going to go and, cause pain to our HOA residents. But let's see if we can get a kickback from just generating all this revenue for this painting company that they should absolutely not use. Wink, wink. So so the reason I was telling you is like, I wonder how many like certification bodies like collude with companies or requirement
100%.
makers
to say, well, the lobbyists are involved too. And I'm sure that the lobbyists are the ones that are making money between the Security Plus exam makers and the and all the Department of Defense contracts that insist that you have to have Security Plus to be able to run a sudo command.
I'm like, it has nothing to do. Like, there's nothing in that Security Plus that will make you be worthy to have an admin password.
No, and definitely nothing more than taking your normal security briefing that you have to do once a year anyway.
Yeah, I think you would learn more in that than you do Security Plus.
Yeah, I would agree. So,
all right. So again, some certifications, specifically Atlassian, you get the
Yeah.
double whammy where in order to maintain the certification, you got to go study. And so again,
Now,
it's a two for one.
if you want to work in a particular cloud environment, then it makes sense to go after some AWS certificates or GCP or Azure, depending on which environment you're targeting your career towards. I definitely think that that's worth it. As a hiring manager, I pay attention to those. I may not necessarily put someone's resume that has those above somebody else, but you're definitely not immediately going into the trash can just because you have the certifications. In fact, you're staying out of the trash can because you have the certifications, and you're making it to my next round where I'm actually diving deep into relevant experience. But if you have the relevant experience and the certification, you're going to be much more attractive to a hiring manager.
Yeah, I had a certification teacher who had every certification in cybersecurity, and he would call you a paper tiger
Mm.
because you look fierce, you look scary, but on paper you're very, very scary and very, very you're worth it because you have every certification under the sun. But if I ask you to to close an actual port, not just tell me the port number, but close an actual port.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
How do you go about doing that? And if you
Yeah.
can't
How do you do
answer
that? It's like, well, that wasn't on the test. I just needed to know port 22.
Yeah. But yeah.
But yeah, so that's the difference between a paper tiger. Like I think
Yeah.
you said something that's near and dear to my heart because I fought certifications for a very, very long time in the Atlassian world, right? I basically didn't want them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because I didn't want the paper tiger like stigma. Like I didn't want people to think I didn't know, like I didn't want people to just respect me because I had papers. Like I wanted people to know that I had the skills. Hence the YouTube channel came first.
I'm 100% with you. I've fought having to take certifications, since the early 90s, because usually I know what I'm doing, and I get to a particular level with a product that I'm like, okay, I feel that I'm at an expert level to administrate this particular product. Who's this training person at the vendor that's going to write a test that is going to truly test my knowledge? And why do I have to jump through these hoops? I know the product. I can demonstrate I know the product. People hire me because I'm an expert on this product. Why do I need the certification? And the reason became because I want to make money selling the products, and I want to make money supporting the products.
Yeah.
And unless we have the certification, the vendor's not going to play ball with us.
And for newer folks, you won't want it because it adds to your resume if you don't have experience. Right?
It does. It gets you through that. Depending on the size of the company that you're applying to, you have gatekeepers. I don't. If you're applying to my company, I don't have a gatekeeper. I am the gatekeeper. Resumes come directly to me, and then I may have other people review them, but I'm the first one that sees them, and then the last one to approve or disapprove of submissions. But if if you're applying to a large company, then there's someone in HR, and it's probably the most junior person, or it's probably automated. It could be an AI tool now that's just looking for the keywords, and getting the certifications will get you past that gatekeeper.
Yep.
And then you need to worry about some relevant experience.
Yeah. Then you got to know how to actually close the ports. And in the DevOps space, like you can't fake not knowing like proper branching strategies. You can't fake not knowing how to build pipelines. Like talk about imposter syndrome, it'll come out quick.
Yeah. So and yeah, definitely in this field, you're not going to have as many hiring managers that don't know how to interview. They are some that will just sit there and talk about their kids and what kind of tree would you be if you could be a tree, type dumb questions like that, and you may be able to charm your way through and get a position, but that is very few and far between. Usually they're going to ask you serious tech questions.
Hey man, I got a job as a DevOps engineer. Even though you don't think it's a DevOps engineer. DevOps, what did you call it? Profession?
Professional. Yeah.
Yeah, I became a DevOps professional, and my interview question was, "Do you want to move to California, and can you solve hard problems?" That was
That
it.
was it. Yeah.
That was it. Here's $100,000. Move.
Well, back in the '90s, I had a technical interview that was pretty straightforward. It was obvious nobody. I had like 8 people interview me for roughly an hour each. This was like a full day of interviews, and they
I've
flew
had
me
those
out to the
before.
site. Yeah, and it was obvious none of the people that interviewed me had no idea what I was going to be doing at the company, and so they were just pretty much asking me questions that lined up with what they did. So if they were a programmer, they were asking me programming questions. If they were middle management, they were asking me time tracking
Talk about
questions.
knowing the whole stack.
Yeah, and yeah, I went through all that, but the hardest question the entire day was a gotcha question. It was, why are manhole covers round?
Oh, I know the answer to that one.
Yeah, well, it's become a classic interview question now, but at the time, I think this was like '97 or '96. I had never heard of it before, and so I guessed, and luckily I guessed right. But then I continued on, and I found 2 other reasons why it's good to have them round. But go ahead. What do you remember? What the answer was?
Yeah. It's because any other shape, when you turn it diagonally, it goes right through.
Yeah, you could hit. If somebody's in the hole, you hit him on the head with this gigantic steel thing.
Yeah.
Which
The other one that I
not
was
a good
very
thing.
related to that one is how many manholes covers are in a city,
Okay,
and so you got to give them a number.
you have to give a number. You can't say all of them.
Yeah, no, yeah, you got to like say 3,622.
Okay, I don't get the point of this particular question, but
Because it's a classic like programming style. Because if I asked you how many round manholes are in a city, the first question is supposed to ask like, well, what city are we talking about? New York, or are we talking about
yeah,
Loveland, Colorado? Like Loveland,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
Colorado. And
yeah.
so that's your first. So the whole point is that you go from a problem
Oh, okay. So the point is not coming
scope
up with a
that big,
number; it's coming up with a
a
a,
scope,
a, a
a
scope.
finite scope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And so you go through the exercise and like, okay, well now how many square miles is a is a city? And you're like, well, let's assume it's 2 square miles. I'm like, okay, how big is a block? How
yeah.
many blocks do
The
we have?
manhole covers just taking care of the sewer, or is it also for electrical
Yeah, so
service?
then you start making assumptions in the scope too. You're like, okay, let's assume that every other block has a manhole cover, and that every like parallel street has one per street or something. So you're like, oh, okay, well then you got 22. Because
Yeah,
you came down to you got 22 streets in a
yeah,
2 mile radius or something, right? Something like that.
I have not heard that play on the manhole cover
Yeah,
question.
it's again, it's because in programming, right? You go build me a button that like checks out your cart. Well,
Mhm.
checks it out from what? Is it a
Yeah.
web one? Is it a mobile? Like
So
you
yeah,
got the whole premise is that you define the scope because they intentionally give you an ambiguous scope. Because a
mhm.
lot of people just jump into answering a question, and you're not
Yeah,
supposed. You got to
yeah, yeah.
clarify that requirement.
So that leads into the type of questions I ask, and I don't want to ruin it for any people that are going to be interviewing
Interview.
with.
If you ever
Is
interview for Sean Doyle, let us know in the comments.
yeah. Have you ever interviewed with me and you didn't get the job? At least, hopefully, you heard back why.
I'll
I
tell you
do.
my 2 questions that I always ask.
Okay.
How do you rename a status in Jira?
so I told Rodney. I think I told you already.
Yeah.
We actually had a customer recently that did that, and it took me a couple hours to bail them out of
Yeah,
that.
it's something that you should not be able to do at Atlassian.
Yeah.
At least
So
not so easily with such a big impact.
yeah, but anyway, yeah. So when I interview people, I like to ask open-ended questions that don't have a right or wrong answer,
Why
just
is
to see
Gamora?
exactly why. You do them one better. Why is Gamora? Yeah. But and I just want to see where they're going to go with it, and this allows me to see how are they under pressure, what's their thought process, how organized is that thought process. And sometimes sometimes they paint themselves in the corner. Sometimes they
I find that they mostly paint themselves in the corner. I used to ask, why do you like Jira?
why do you like Jira? So the right answer is it's the best tool so far for the job.
It's always interesting to see questions. People interview in very funny ways when the stakes are high. I did 18 rounds of interviews with Google. Did I ever tell you?
No, I've never heard this. Yeah.
I interviewed with Google back in 2022. Well, I applied January
3
of
years ago.
2022. I applied in January 2021. They
Uh-huh.
came back to me that they were interested in like September of 2021. And then by like November of 2021, they're like, okay, you made it to the round where we're gonna do the next phase. Like I got beyond like the first couple of screens. And then that got scheduled out over some time. And then I had like a whole day where it's like 8 interviews. I passed all of those. But the last one of that 8 series was very interesting because the lady like saw me squirm, but she saw that I was curious enough, but she didn't feel the confidence in my voice. And so she actually like let me redo it.
Okay.
Like she coached me during the interview, and then she's like, try it again. And then the second time, like I knew what to do because she gave me the answer. It was really cool. It was really cool. And then after that, you Google, you enter a pool of approved hires, and then hiring managers, when they want to, then they have a rec. They don't go out to the internet; they go into that pool and interview those people. So I had to go through a round.
I've heard of that. I actually have a friend of mine who a number of years ago interviewed at both Google and AWS at the same time, and he made it to the pool in Google, and then just sat in that pool for a long time.
Yeah, you can sit for a while. It's not until another company like gives you an offer that they get fast.
That's exactly what happened. Is AWS offered him a position, and when he let Google know that he could take me out of the pool now, then all of a sudden someone was interested in him at Google, and he was able to use that with AWS to counter AWS's offer and get a better.
Now the times have definitely changed, but yeah, I did 18 rounds with Google. So I love interviewing because I'm not. I figure no company's ever going to interview 18 times.
No, that's brutal. 18 times.
Yeah.
I rarely interview anymore. I'm usually the interviewer because I'm hiring people. But so I still do some of the consulting work myself, and sometimes that requires an interview. And the hiring manager wants to talk to who's going to come in and help them solve whatever we're coming in for. And
you don't do the cocky answers that I do. I go, you call me. I'm here to help.
That's I guess those are cocky answers, but yeah, I try to put a positive spin on those. But yeah, usually it's like, yeah, I'm here to help.
You're the one with the Jira problems, not me. My 2 cents. The beer test is, I think, a very popular test. Have you heard of the beer test?
I don't think I have.
It's at the end of the day when you're done talking with this person, would you want to go hang out on a Friday afternoon and have a couple beers with them? Because if the answer is no, then it's not going to be a good fit. You can be the smartest person in the room, but you don't want to.
Yeah, well, yeah, that kind of goes to some of the personas in software development and in DevOps in general. You don't want to work with a cowboy. Sometimes it's good to have a cowboy on your team. You don't want to be the cowboy, and if you feel yourself becoming the cowboy, you need to self-assess and change. And that goes great right back to your snarky comment on interview. Hey, you're the one with the Jira problem. Well, you're on that slippery slope to becoming the cowboy.
I'm just messing. I don't actually tell him that.
But no, I'm just using it as an example. The concept of the cowboy is someone that just gets in there and does stuff and gets shit done. And sometimes that's exactly what you need as an organization. long term, you do not want that persona working for you. It diminishes the work from all the other people that are trying to contribute to the project. And so ultimately, you don't want to be you don't want to have a cowboy working for you. And if you find yourself becoming the cowboy, you're not delegating, you're not working with your team. I'm terrible at basketball analogies, but if you don't pass the ball to your other teammates, the team's not going to win.
Yeah,
You're the only one on the team that's doing everything.
There's a good book by Ryan Holiday called "Ego is the Enemy."
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
assume you
Cowboys
have it
usually
on
have
your
a
shelf right there because you just looked at the shelf.
yeah, but well, I know. Well, I wasn't that dumb. I'm humble enough to admit that I'm not the smartest person in the room.
Yeah. The
But
yeah.
if you do like that topic, let us know in the comment section down below because and make sure you subscribe to the channel because we will most likely be doing or what are your top 10 skills to make it and survive in the DevOps profession world.
Mhm.
I think soft skills are very grossly underrated. But again, make sure you subscribe and come back for more.
And we talked about the workplace health or mental health in the workplace, another episode, and there's a lot more to discuss on that.
Yeah.
But that also flows into the soft skills. If you just don't have those soft skills, you may be the one that's making it an unhealthy environment.
I had a client once where I joined in as a TPM, technical program manager, to help him out. And the technical program manager, that you kind of work with all the teams, right? You work with the DevOps folks, you work with the software, you work with the testers, you work with the requirements, you work with the writers, you work with everybody. And I remember the VP that brought me on, he was like, before you talk to our head engineer,
Oh no, I've had that conversation
he's
before.
like, before you talk to our head engineer, you should be aware that he's got a condition.
Oh, this is taking a different turn.
Yeah, no, he had a bipolarism or a
Oh,
bipolar disorder, right? And so he's like, if you start snapping on you, don't freak out. Like it's perfectly normal. I'm like, how is this perfectly normal? I don't want to be
oh,
yelled at in a meeting. I don't think that he had bipolar disorder, but he would go off the rails a lot,
mhm.
and maybe they chalked that up to that. But you want to have people that lift the team up, not belittle the team,
Exactly. Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
they want to call it. Right? But you want a healthy team because you
Mhm.
can only get so far with your A player. At the end of the day, the team's gonna go farther.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many issues with relying on the A player. The slightest thing can piss them off, and then they're off to another company.
Yeah.
They're not the ones that are going to be there in the long haul. And it's your other players,
And
and
then it goes back to imposter syndrome, right? Because whoever's left, they're like, well, crap, I don't know. They didn't write this.
I'm not as good as that guy was. Yeah.
Yeah, but now you're having to interpret their code. You're having to read their code. You're realizing, oh man, I really don't know anything. Like, did I even know how to code to begin with? Like you're questioning life choices at that point.
or you look at the Cowboys code and you're like, I don't like any of this. I can't, and so
Refactor
now you're
time.
like, you have to refactor everything. And is it because the cowboy just got shit done and his code worked, but it
A lot of
wasn't
duct tape. A lot of
maintainable?
duct
It was all duct tape and rubber bands and stuff. And so now you're thinking, but that guy was a rock star, and that's partly imposter syndrome as well, because you're like, I don't really want to refactor all this because that guy was so revered, and but
Yeah.
this stuff's unmaintainable.
And I would say to bring this conversation back together to like the relevant skills, right? Or how to stay relevant in DevOps, I would say you got to leverage these situations, whether you're working with the cowboy, whether you are the cowboy, you should have some self-awareness to like, especially if you're working with the cowboy, that's an opportunity for you to roll up your sleeves and jump into the deep end, right? Because
Mhm.
that cowboy can't have it all. Right. And so
No.
that's an opportunity where if you need to increase your skills or you want to stay relevant, get in there, kind of jump on those PRs, right? Understand what is the cowboy changing, and just
what is he doing? What is he avoiding? Because that's also a good opportunity. If the Cowboys focused on a specific skill set or technology, and the project itself, needs more than that, then these other areas are often overlooked.
Especially if you're staying relevant with what's happening in the industry, and the Cowboys missing those things. Because let's face it, the Cowboys not going to be refreshing their skills, right?
No.
And so these are opportunities for you to stay relevant, personal relevance, where you will then drive business value, which will then escalate. Because here's what I'll tell you: at the end of the day, you can watch all the podcasts, listen to all the podcasts, read all the articles, watch everything, attend all the courses, but until you do something that is keeping your boss up at night and you fix that problem, that's when you're going to get the
you want to fix the problem that's keeping the boss up. You don't want to be the problem.
Yeah, you don't want to be the problem. But the moment you start fixing problems for the team, right? The moment you start contributing and delivering results and moving the needle in the positive direction, that's when opportunities start opening up for you. So you can stay in research heaven, right? And just stay over there researching, learning. But until you actually do something, it's the best way to be relevant.
It is. It is. Yeah. You really need to prove yourself to wherever you're working, to stay relevant.
And maybe it's relevant. We started off the episode with saying relevant was a relatively unstable term, but maybe relevant is just being self-aware that it's a destination. I'm sorry, it's a journey, not a destination.
It's a journey. It's not only the tech school skills; it's also the soft skills. You can't be the office grump that just does the same thing over and over every day. You have to interact. I love being that guy in the back room that just gets shit done and keep your head down and get just be the best admin that you can for whatever tool you're administrating. But ultimately, that doesn't help you succeed in a career. You need to be interacting with the everybody in the office, and that's how you get ahead. If you could be the best programmer, but not the cowboy. And if no one ever wants to talk to you, or no one knows your name, you're never.
Or if everybody knows your name for the wrong reasons.
Oh yeah, that's not good either. Yeah. Well, also that kind of comes with the territory of being a tool admin. Often, if you're a good tool admin, no one notices. As soon as you're a bad tool admin, everybody knows your name. So, I don't want to always use Jira as an example. So let's use GitLab. Or GitHub, either one. You could be managing that for your company, and everything's working flawlessly. No one recognizes you. As soon as people can't log into GitLab because of something, some upgrade or something changed, everybody is knocking down your door. That's when the pitchforks and torches come out.
Well, folks, I hope this episode was inspirational, helpful.
Well, we can't end it on pitchforks and torches.
Why not? I thought that was a perfect ending.
That's a perfect ending.
That's why I wanted to transition to let's wrap it up. How do you top that?
Well, I'm going to go get a torch and a pitchfork for the back of my office now for the next episode.
If this episode helped you out, make sure you smash the subscribe button. Make sure you drop that like and share it with your colleagues, share it with your coworkers. If you have a cowboy in your team, send this video to them.
Yes.
And we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.